Hello everyone, this is Pico Entertainment and we're back again, and here now we have another tennis video for you, and here I'm going to give my overall predictions and picks for the French Open quarterfinals for both the men's and women's sides of the draw. Now that the earlier rounds have been complete, we finally know who the final 8 opponents will be for the quarterfinals. So we're going to look at the men's draw first up in terms of the lineup of opponents, and the first match we have in terms of the quarterfinals will be Novak Djokovic against Matteo Betterrini. Now, Djokovic survived a 5-setter against the young Italian Lorenzo Mucciati earlier on. Now, I say survived very loosely. He lost the first 2 sets in tiebreakers overall, and we were looking at a very major upset at the time, but Mucciati just didn't have the physicality for some strange reason to last the match, and he had to pull out. Very strange that someone so young, physicality could go like that, particularly when you're playing the older, more experienced player, but hey, it is. And to be honest, when I watched that match, despite the fact that Novak still went 2 sets down, I watched the early parts of the 3rd set, and as soon as Novak got the break, I kind of knew that he would come back and recover from the deficit, so it wasn't really too surprising to see Novak come back from that match overall. And then we look at Betterini's side of the draw. He's had a pretty much of a comfortable passage so far, made even easier of course by the fact that Roger Federer pulled out earlier, citing the fact that he's only recently come back from his knee injury and he wanted to save himself for the grass court season. Now, I have read online some criticism be aimed at Roger Federer, but I don't feel the same, because let's be honest here, he wasn't going into the French Open expecting to win, and I believe he actually stated that in an interview a couple of weeks prior to the French Open. We all know in previous seasons that he skipped the clay court season altogether, and at 39 years old now, we all know his time is very limited now, and the fact that he has been saving himself primarily for the slams and the ones that he think he can win the most. And we all know his most impressive record is on the grass. And if you think about it, Federer's been out for over a year, and the French Open really was his first major entry into competitive tennis. So he needed to get some sort of match play before going to the grass. Now, if he had only had, let's say, a setback and he was only out of the game for, let's say, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, then okay, I think he maybe would have skipped the French Open, but a year is a long time out, so he just needs to get a couple of matches on his belt. So let's be honest, we never expected him to go all the way in the tournament. If he got to the quarters, I think he would have indeed lost to Djokovic. If his time out overcame Novak, he would have got to the semis and lost to Rafa overall. So I wasn't as critical as what some others have been about Roger pulling out of the tournament. But we go on, and in terms of this quarterfinal, I fully expect Djokovic to beat Betterini in 4 sets. I think Betterini may even take the first set. As we all know, he's very much of an aggressive, big serving, big forehand type of player, but on clay, of course, it's a lot harder to hit winners, especially when you've got someone of the defensive skills of Novak Djokovic. So I think he'll come out swinging, he'll come out fast, and maybe we might get a slow start from Djokovic again, but eventually, Betterini, he won't be able to match the intensity level. Djokovic will get enough balls back, he'll get enough angles, he'll get the shots very long and deep, and Betterini will force the shots, he'll force the play, and he'll end up making lots of errors. So that's why I think Novak Djokovic will come through. So for the first final, I think Djokovic will beat Betterini in 4 sets overall. Now we look at the second quarterfinals. We have Alexander Zverev against Davidovich Fokina. Now, I'm going to hold my hands up here. I don't really know a lot about this player in terms of his record. I don't think he's really done a lot in terms of his career. So we should expect Zverev to beat this opponent. Now, of course, we know Zverev is primarily more accustomed to the hard courts, but he has had recent successes on a clay court. He did win Madrid, of course, and he did beat Nadal recently as well. So he's had enough about him, Zverev, to make an impression on clay. So this will be another test of whether he has got the takes to get into the later stages of the slam. He should win, but I wouldn't be overall surprised if I end up seeing him losing in the 4 or 5 set, because again, he's very temperamental, Zverev. You know, when the pressure's on and expectancy is put on him, that's when he really falters overall. So I expect him to win, but I wouldn't overall be shocked if he loses. So I'm going to go for Zverev in 4 sets in his second quarterfinal. We look at the third quarterfinal, and we have Rafael Nadal against Diego Schwartzman. If you remember, the two played in the matches leading up to the French Open. Last year, of course, this was when everything was upset by COVID, and Schwartzman actually beat Rafa in the Rome quarterfinals, but Rafa still went on to win a tournament back then as well. Schwartzman has always been an aggressive player overall, and sometimes he's managed to get the upper hand over Rafael Nadal, and I think the key to that is he's going to be very aggressive. He's going to look to serve big, take the ball early, try to take the upper hand within the rallies, try to take time away from Rafa, and that's why he can be successful sometimes in 2 out of 3 set matches. But of course, when you were talking about 3 out of 5 set matches, it's a whole different ball game. And the problem is, if you're going to take that aggressive mindset, you've got to be able to maintain it for 4 and maybe likely 5 sets, and particularly when we're playing Rafa on clay. And I don't think Schwartzman will be able to do it. It'll be very similar to what we saw with Nadal against his performance against Sinner. You know, Sinner, very much like Schwartzman, was taking big swings, hard forehands, shots down the line, really tried to take it to Nadal, trying to push him back. He was successful in the beginning, but once he started making errors, Rafa was just more consistent, and Rafa managed to pull through in that performance in 3 overall sets. So really, apart from that Sinner match, which was a good test for Rafa, I think it's a test that he needed, he's really been quite merciless in his lead-up play to these quarterfinals, particularly when we look at that second match against Gasquet. I mean, that was absolutely devastating in that night match there. You know, he would have beaten or crushed anybody, I believe, in 3 straight sets playing the way he did. So I think overall I'm happy with Rafa's form. I think he's showing that he's still fresh fitness. There's no injury worries at all. When push comes to shove, he's been able to elevate his level, making sure that his depth of shot is long enough. You know, he's serving pretty well in consistency. There aren't really any major problems, I think, and I can't really see Schwartzman being able to consistently trouble Rafa over a 3 out of 5 set match. Now, I think Schwartzman will take the first set, and it'll probably end up being in the tiebreaker, but I think Rafa will elevate his game, and then we'll get a couple of clutch points midway through the second set. Rafa will overcome him, and then Schwartzman will start making errors and mistakes. Of course, Schwartzman is very short, isn't he? So Rafa will look to execute and utilise that top spin, trying to make it difficult for Schwartzman to reach out for the shots. That's why Schwartzman is going to try and take the ball early. So again, with the conditions the way they are, very suitable for Rafa. Ball's going to be bouncing high, very nice, hot, dry conditions. That just helps his game overall. So I can't really see Schwartzman making too much of an impression, but I will at least give him a first set, and then Rafa will overcome the next 3. So in this quarterfinal, I expect Rafa to win in 4 sets. Now, we're going to the last quarterfinal, and for many, this is probably the marquee matchup of the quarterfinal setup, and that is Stefanos Tsitsipas against Daniil Medvedev. Now, of course, these are the 2 of the supposed big 4 when you include the TM and Zverev, and we've been asking for years now, when will the supposed next gen step up to the plate? I've said before, I think when looking at the draw at the beginning, when I did a video in terms of previewing the French Open, I believe Tsitsipas will get to the final, and he actually has an outside chance to win this tournament. Now, this has been a revelation tournament for Daniil Medvedev, because we all know he's primarily more of a hard court player. He prefers the faster services, of course, so him getting to this round has been really fantastic, and many may argue he's probably overachieved at this point, despite the fact that he's number 2 in the world. But I sadly think when it comes to the clay court, I think Tsitsipas is just much more of an accomplished player. He's had a very good clay court season overall. He won in Lyon recently, of course, and he's had a couple of big battles against Rafa. He, of course, came back from 2 sets down against Rafa to beat him in the Australian Open quarterfinals this year. So maybe you could argue that this season could be Tsitsipas's time. This could be where he makes a major move and potentially has a breakthrough in one of the slams overall. So that's why I'm more confident in Tsitsipas, because I think he's far more accomplished on the clay than what Medvedev is. So I'm going for a straight sets win for Tsitsipas. Wouldn't be too much of a shock if Medvedev manages to take a set off him, but I just think Medvedev just isn't really accustomed to the clay. Despite getting this far, he's had pretty much easy opponents leading up to this round so far, so I can't see him troubling Tsitsipas. I just think Tsitsipas has got too many skills. He's too much of a cultivated game on the clay, and I think he'll just be too skilled and will outmaneuver Daniil Medvedev. So I'm going for Tsitsipas to win in 3 straight sets against Daniil Medvedev in the last of the men's quarter-finals. Now we go on to the women's side of the draw, and this will be a quick discussion because I have to hold my hands up. Most of the players within the solid draw I've barely heard about. We've had a lot of unseeded players come through, and I think it's maybe been a bit disappointing from the organisers' point of view in terms of the women's solid draw, because all of the big names have all fallen through early. So of course we're looking at the likes of Ashley Barty, Kvitova went through injury, Serena went out earlier on, of course, and of course we had the whole drama with Naomi Osaka. So really, you know, the tournament organisers, they always want the big names to pull through, but that hasn't been the case so far. So again, this will be very brisk and quick when I go through these names, because I don't know a lot about them. So the first final is Zidansek, I believe, against Badosa Gilbert, both unseeded players. Again, I couldn't really tell you anything about them. I'll go for Badosa Gilbert in this first round. We then have Rybakina against Pavlyuchenkova, 21st seed against the 31st seed. Again, not very familiar with a lot of these players, what they've done. You may need to go to other channels who are more hardcore fans to find out what these players have done in ability. I will go for Pavlyuchenkova, if I'm even saying that name right. So I will go for her to win, maybe in 3 sets overall. But again, I'm very unfamiliar with either of these players, so it could be anyone's pick, to be honest. We then go to, I think, the most interesting part of the women's quarterfinals, and that is Coco Gauff against Krejcikova. I hope I'm saying that name right. Now, obviously, the big story of the tournament is Coco Gauff, and again, at 17 years old, the fact that she's managing to compete at these tournaments and get to 4th rounds, quarterfinals, I think is amazing in itself. If she manages to proceed any further, again, she'll have to deal with all the media hype and scrutiny that surrounds it. I think, to be fair, the media has been very good to Coco Gauff. She seems very level-headed, keeps her feet firmly on the ground. I wouldn't be surprised if she doesn't make it through, but I just think that's just because of her lack of experience so far. And obviously, this is a very major achievement for her getting to this stage of the tournament as well. So it wouldn't surprise me if she loses in this stage of the tournament. But again, that's no shame, because I believe if she's already getting to this stage at 17 years old, then I believe that bodes very well for her in the next 4 to 5 years. So we come to the final of the women's quarterfinals, and we have Swiatek, the defending champion, against Sakkari. I predict that Swiatek will go through, no problem. You know, she's looked pretty swift so far. She's had a couple of tests coming in through to these rounds, but again, I think she'll just be too strong, too experienced, and she is the highest seeded player, and she probably is now, with all the other top seeds going up the tournament, the prime favourite to retain her title overall. So I don't expect a big upset here in any sense of regard. So I think Swiatek will come through straightforward and straight sets overall in that particular matchup. So those are my overall thoughts and feelings and predictions of the quarterfinals of the French Open. Let me know what you think in the comments below. As I did with the Australian Open, I will of course make predictions for the semi-finals. I will try and get these videos out as quick as I can, because I know 2 or 3 of the quarterfinals are tomorrow, and then they will have the others on Thursday as well. So I will get these out as soon as I can, but obviously let me know what you think in the comments below. Who do you think will pull through in any of the matches? Will we see an upset at all? Will Betterrini serve out of his mind and upset Novak? Can Schwartzman somehow put up the upset of the tournament and somehow beat Nadal? I don't think we believe that, to be honest. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Also hit those like and subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you with more high quality content in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves, stay at safe distances, and I will see you very, very soon.